5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's a great day to be great, and it's a great time to welcome you all to the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. I am the host, Dr. Daryl Crosby, and I'm still excited about this journey that I love so much. So all I'm asking from you is a few moments of your time, a few minutes of your busy schedule, so that we can discuss some leadership principles that I hope will inspire at least one person to take that next step in their leadership journey, or even to bring that one person who has been abusing their influence as a leader back down to earth, to where they understand how important sound, effective leadership is to not only one other person, but to generations of people. I promise you, when you internalize and apply the things that we talk about on this podcast, you will realize that your time was not wasted, and you will notice a positive change in your leadership style that will yield legendary results. Now, before I get into the content of this episode, I would like to point out a few things that has transpired since I've launched this project. They may be small steps to some, but they are major steps to me as I'm looking to make strides with the content of leadership that I'm presenting. First, according to analytics, this series is currently up to 175 downloads. Second, the podcast has landed in ears in 14 states in the United States. Third, it has recently provided me the opportunity to speak to other educators and leaders at a summer institute in Norfolk, Virginia, and has allowed the book Legacy Within the Educator to reach the hands of close to 100 fellow educators and leaders. And fourth, which is probably the most exciting to me, not only is it growing with listeners in the United States, there is one particular listener in Nigeria, all the way in Africa, who is now plugged into the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. Listen, I have not met you. I have not met you yet, but thank you. Please feel free to reach out via email at infiniteimpact8. That's infiniteimpact, the number 8, at gmail.com. You can reach me at Daryl Cross, that's DARYLCROS, on Instagram and Twitter, or you can go to the Dr. Daryl Crosby page on Facebook. So with all that being said, I'd like to introduce to everyone who is tuning in to the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast, someone that I personally have been in the trenches of these education streets, being that we taught together in the same building for several years. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I do believe our building was her first building. She came in as a rookie, and I had the privilege to see her grow into the person, the educator, and the leader that she is today. I can't tell you how many heart-to-heart and those difficult conversations of text messages, that we've shared throughout the years, whether it was to encourage each other to keep pushing or holding each other accountable for what we were doing. She's always been super supportive of everything that I do. In fact, she was very instrumental. Well, I'll go ahead and say she was instrumental in allowing me to share my story as a keynote speaker at an event in one of the largest school divisions in the state a few years ago, which was probably the largest audience that I've ever had a chance to speak to. And I thought it worked out pretty well, so I'm very appreciative of that. And in that same division, she now serves as an educational leader. And I remember the day that she called me to tell me of her accomplishments. And the funny thing was, I was actually in that particular city when she called me, but I was at a car lot, and we had just purchased a car, and we were driving off. And I remember vividly, because I was like, man, she out here making power moves, and I'm out here spending money that I don't have, depreciating. So that phone call definitely inspired me. So I introduced to you all, as I have promised in previous episodes, Mrs. Lisa Riley. What's going on, Lisa?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you, and welcome to the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast. I really do appreciate you taking your time to share some of your perspectives and insights on leadership. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right into it. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into education and how you got into leadership.
Well, my story starts way back when I was in fourth grade. I had an amazing teacher, and it wasn't because of the content that she taught. It was because how she treated me as a person. I was going through a lot at home. My parents were fighting. They were on the verge of divorce, and she knew that, and she understood that, and she reached me on that social emotional level that we've been talking about a lot in education these days.
Yeah.
And she touched me there, and I knew from that point on that I wanted to be like her. I stuck with that all through my middle school years, my high school years, and I declared myself an elementary education major from day one. I had a lot of friends who went into college not knowing. They went in undeclared, or they started in one major and switched to another, and that just wasn't me. I knew that my heart was in education from day one.
Yeah.
I graduated. I got my first job, like you said in the intro, with you in Norfolk, Virginia, and I just hit the ground running. I didn't see myself at that time as an educational leader. And it wasn't until several years down the road, several school changes later, that a friend of mine said, I think you'd be good at this. And it really caused me to sit back and reflect. As an educator, I reflect every day.
Yeah.
But this caused me to sit back and reflect in a different way. And I went to my assistant principal at the time, and I said to him, hey, someone told me this, and I'm not quite sure, what do you think? And he said, I've been waiting for this conversation. And I said, but I don't feel ready. He encouraged me to go back to school to get my principalship certificate then. I did feel ready. I wouldn't have to take that extra 2 years to go back and get that certificate. And I'm so thankful for him for encouraging me to do that. Because through that program is when I really started to see myself as a leader. But I was ready with all the paperwork as well. So from that point, I continued my journey. I found my tribe and my mentors, and that led me to the place I am now.
Wow, that's good. You said a couple of things that, and I want to get into a little more. One of the things that you mentioned, your assistant principal at the time. One thing that I got out of your story is leaders being an encourager. And you had mentioned that your assistant principal encouraged you to go ahead and go back to school. He had said, I know that statement by itself, I've been waiting on this conversation. That had to have been very encouraging and very inspiring when you heard him say that. Talk to me about how you felt when you heard him say those words. I was waiting on this conversation.
I think overwhelmed. Because I was still living within my four walls of the classroom, and I wasn't seeing the big picture. And the fact that someone else saw something in me that I didn't quite see in myself yet, was a bit overwhelming. But at the same time, it was thrilling and exciting to know that he saw that and he was ready to help me on that journey.
Yeah, that's big. That's big for him as a leader to have that perspective and have that overview, because as educators sometimes we get caught in our classroom. Like you said, you were in the four walls of your classroom, and a lot of times teachers aren't able to see outside of the classroom and into the building as leaders do, especially in the school system, in the school in general. They're able to see things from that school-wide or that worldwide perspective as opposed to just in the classroom. Shout out to him for being that encouraging leader. Good leaders are good leaders, and good leadership is good leadership. So when we have those leaders out there trying to bring other people on their platform, man, I shout out anybody who's trying to do that, because that's what I believe in. And in order to create better leaders and get better leadership in place, and it doesn't have to be in the school. It can be in whatever field that you're in. That's a key component to leadership and developing those leaders. Now, what college did you go to? Talk about that. Where did you receive your education and your certification, training, all of those things?
I'm from Pennsylvania originally.
Okay.
So I did my undergrad at Westchester University, which is just outside Philadelphia.
Okay.
I got my, like I said, Bachelor of Science in Education there. I got my teaching license up there. I was certified pre-K to 6. Our motto at college up there was proud to be one of 3, meaning the 17,000 at the time students, 1 out of 3 was an education major. And they told us if we wanted to get a job, we'd have to move, which is how I ended up in Virginia. I was working down here with you, actually, and there was something in our staff lounge about getting our master's at Avery University.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I did that. I got my master's in curriculum and instruction from Avery University. And then once I talked to my former administrator about, going down the path towards administration, he encouraged me to go to George Washington University because the school division we work in has a tight relationship with them. And I'm so thankful that he encouraged me down this path, but also towards that university, because through that program, I made some connections, which I think helped me land where I am today.
Yeah, and that's something else that brings you and I, we talk about a common bond. We both have experience from GW, George Washington University, which has prepared us both to enter this field of the leadership side of education. So shout outs to GW, man. Y'all are doing some great things out there. So let's talk about, I want to ask you, because everyone has experienced positive, and I think you probably spoke on someone who was very positive in your life and in your journey as far as that positive leader. But also we have all been scarred, and I talk a lot about it. We've been scarred, or we've had that negative experience with a particular leader or leaders. So talk a little bit about some of your positive and negative experiences with leadership.
As you said, I've already mentioned one. His impact continues even from that day so long ago to the present. And I just love sitting back and watching him and how he handles situations and how he interacts with staff and students and parents. And I learned so much from him about the power of yes. That is one of his things. He says yes as often as he can, just to see the impact that it has on the staff that are coming to us with questions and requests. And it's not easy, especially when you're dealing with bookkeeping and money in the school and programs. But that power of yes is huge. And it's not something I really thought about before working under him. But it is something that I want to carry forward with me. And I worked under another leader, a female, when I first started out, and she taught me the power of relationships. I knew that I was able to go to her and ask about curriculum and ask about teaching methodology and pedagogy. And I knew that she wasn't going to come in and observe my class to see where I was struggling or what I was doing wrong, but really and truly to support me and make me a better teacher. And I'm just so thankful to have served under both of them, because it's really made me an instructional leader, a leader in relationships, and a leader in so many other ways.
That's good. That's powerful. And I would love to learn a little more about the power of yes. Because at listening to it, the first thing I think of, okay, people can take advantage of you if you're always saying yes, or if you're focusing on saying yes, will you make the best decisions for the students and for the building? Because in my experience, sometimes you got to say no. Sometimes you can't let things happen the way that others want it to happen, because that might not be the best for the situation or the best for the building. So I would love to know a little more about the power of yes. Maybe that's something we can get into a little later. So talk to us about a negative experience that you've had with another leader.
This is hard to talk about because I am going to make her sound positive in the end. It was a tough couple of years. working under a leader who micromanaged, who was not very approachable, wasn't very personable. But the truth of the matter is, professionally, she was so smart and she was so on point and she was doing absolutely the best she knew how to do. It made relationships in the building suffer, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about what I needed to learn to reach her level of professional knowledge. And it taught me a lot about how I wanted to be as a leader and the impact I want to make. So even though my years with her weren't the best years in my educational career, in a way they kind of were. They shaped me to be the person that I am now, the educator that I am now, the leader that I am now, although it was hard at the time.
Yeah, and one thing I want to commend you, even though that was a negative experience for you, and this is a sign of a good leader, you were able to take that negative experience. I mean, even before you started explaining, you said that what you're going to do is you're going to make it positive. And I think your ability to do that and to see the silver lining in every situation, even throughout those tough times and going through it, and this is a skill that we have to develop as leaders. Going through it, it's hard to see the positivity of it. But as you mentioned earlier, you reflect all the time. And that's another key element of being a successful leader, being able to reflect and see, the good out of every situation, and being able to reflect and see how you were then going through it and turning it around to make you a better leader and to take out the parts, because we're not going everybody we experience, everybody we team up with, they're not going to be the most positive person, but I do believe everybody has something that we can learn from. And so in this situation, you were able to take something that you wanted from her, something that you were able to learn from her, and to kind of put it in your book so that you can kind of make yourself a better leader. So I commend you for doing that, because not everybody is able to do that. And that kind of separates the good leaders and the ineffective leaders. So speaking of, leadership and those principles, we've been talking about the Crosby Principle of Leadership. You like my name? You like the name that I gave?
I do like it.
You like that?
Acronyms in education, we're all about it.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna stick with that there. So we talked about the L standing for listening. A good leader has to be able to, kind of master that skill of listening. So I want to tap into you and your pool of knowledge. What's your whole take on being able to listen as a leader?
It's vital. We talk about building relationships all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And listening is a huge part of building those relationships.
Yeah.
If you can't stop what you're doing, really listen to what people are saying and hear them and validate them, you're going to damage your relationship with staff, with students, with parents. I think, when you introduce the topic to me, and that's how I kind of thought about it, parents, students, and staff. I'm going to start with students. They come in my office as an assistant principal. It's usually for discipline.
Yeah.
They're upset, they're agitated, and a lot of times it's because they haven't been heard. The teacher didn't hear them out. The teacher didn't hear their side of the story, and that's what they want. And I tell them, okay, now's your opportunity. And I listen to them, and you can see their body language change. The tears stop, the fists unball, the shoulders drop, their breathing changes. They just want to be heard.
Yeah.
Once they're heard, they're more willing to accept whatever consequence you're giving to them or not giving. They just want to be heard. Then I think about some teachers who are coming in and it's right before spring break. It's been a long time since Christmas break. They're frustrated, they're tired, they're dealing with a lot, and we're handing them one more thing to do, or we're asking for one more report, or we're showcasing a new initiative.
Yeah.
And they just want to be heard. They just want to know that you're hearing that they're tired, they're frustrated, They just want to know that it's okay and that you're listening to them.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking earlier about the power of yes and how sometimes we have to say no. And it's because we listen that they're willing to accept those no's when we have to tell them no. Parents who come in the office on level 10 and they just want to talk to an administrator because their child's being bullied, or their teacher said or did something they shouldn't have said or did according to the parent. And so I bring them in the office and I sit and I say, tell me about it. And I just give them that opportunity where I'm not on my computer, I'm not on my phone, I'm looking them in the eye and I'm hearing what they have to say. And whether it happened or didn't happen, again, it's just usually that they want to be heard. And you can see the same thing you see in the kids. Their voice level comes down, their body language changes, they take that deep breath, and most of the time they end up leaving saying, thank you for listening to me.
Yeah.
They just want to be heard. Listening calms people down, and it builds those relationships so that you can move forward and support the teachers and the kids in the way that you need to.
Yeah, and I speak a lot of, like, for example, one of the leaders that you spoke of, that one who was very, very smart, just professional knowledge, just really, really good. Those are the types who seem to struggle with that listening part, because they feel that since they're smart and they know that they're smart, they have a lot of confidence in their knowledge and in their intelligence, that a lot of times it's hard for them to stop talking. And, we have leaders who struggle with whether it's the student, whether it's the parent, whether it's, other teachers or other people within the organization, I'll put it like that, when they approach them, they feel like they have to talk to the point where they're giving answers all the time. They feel like they have to talk to reply all the time. But like you said, sometimes, these people, the kids, parents, the teachers, they just want to be heard. That's all. And like you said, and very good points, because I can definitely see this, how the body language, it just changed, because it's like, oh my God, someone is really listening to what I have to say. And that's critical. So all y'all, young leaders out there, listening is a critical skill, as Mrs. Riley just mentioned. So if that's something that, you're working on, continue to work on it. And if you haven't thought about working on your listening skills, because listening is a skill, it's not something that just comes naturally. So, Elisa, talk to me about how do you, because it doesn't come naturally to people, how do you work on your listening skills?
Before we go there, I want to go back and add one more thing.
Okay.
Listening opens doors for you.
Okay, yeah.
We talk about that negative leader who wasn't able to listen as well, and things had to be her way. And I think about where I am now. When I sit back and listen, I'm open to new ideas. I'm open to doing things differently. I'm opening doors to make things, because people think differently than me, and they have different ideas, and they see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And if I don't listen, I'm really hindering myself, but I'm hindering my students, I'm hindering my staff, I'm hindering my building. I think that's huge.
Yeah, that is very good point. Very good point. It opens doors. Listening opens doors. I like that. That's a good point there. So what are some things that help you listen better? Some of the things that you do to help sharpen your listening skills?
I am a multitasker.
Okay, yeah.
I had to stop. I had to learn how to, when someone's in my office, not look at my computer. I hit the Windows L button on my desktop to lock it so that there's nothing on my screen, so I'm not tempted to answer that email. I had to learn how to flip my phone upside down when someone walks in, so I'm not seeing the alerts on my phone, and I can focus on what I'm doing, who I'm listening to, really.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening, I am replaying the conversation in my head so that I know that I'm focused on the conversation. As I'm listening, I'm asking questions, I'm replaying the conversation in my head, and I'm validating what they're saying so that they know that I'm listening and they feel heard, which is, like we said before, it's vital.
Yeah, and those are very good strategies. And it's funny how adults, we always talk about the young generation, Generation Z, how they're always on their phone. Every time I look up, they're on their device, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, you ever walk into school? you ever look at the adults in the school, the teachers, the administration? You know, I'm always on my laptop is always open. You know, and that's something that I'm constantly trying to improve on. If my laptop isn't open, I'm on the phone answering emails, you know, that way, you know. So your strategies are, go ahead.
I'm a work in progress. This is a skill that I continue to need to work on.
Absolutely.
And there are times where someone's talking and I'm listening and I do answer an email or I do pick up my phone. And what I do then is I repeat what that person said. Like I said before, I'm pretty good at multitasking. Even though I'm answering the email, I am still listening.
Yeah.
So I repeat what they said, or I'll ask a question pertinent to the conversation that we were having so that they know I'm not ignoring them.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, and I commend you again because you just said you are a work in progress. And any effective leader understand that. They are, you know, I put us all together. We are people that's constantly trying to get better, and it's not process. It's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. So just in itself, just this skill of sharpening your listening skills, you know, it's a process. It's definitely a process. But I appreciate that in you, and I admire that in you, that you know and you are aware that, you know, you have some deficiencies in this listening thing, but you're willing to do what it takes to get better. So let me ask you this before I let you go. What's your next step, you know, on your leadership journey?
My next step is to continue building my tribe, making my relationships, and moving forward. I intend to apply for a principalship in the next couple of years.
Okay.
And become the leader of my own building.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds like you have mapped out a plan, and of course, you know, best wishes to you. Of course, I wish you that because I know you will go somewhere or wherever it is, even if it's not a principal. You know, if there's another opportunity out there, you're still going to be on that leadership platform, and I know you're going to do exceptionally well. So I definitely wish you the best. So my last question for you, to all the millions of people that's listening to the Infinite Impact Leadership Podcast, we have quite a few who are aspiring to get on the platform that you are currently on. So is there anything else? I know you've schooled us all with your insights and your perspectives, some of the things that goes on your platform. But is there something else that you'd like to share with aspiring leaders, regardless of what field they're in? And they don't necessarily have to be in the field of education. That just happens to be what we're in. But like I said before, good leadership is good leadership. So is there anything else that you would like to share with aspiring leaders?
Two things, actually. The first I've touched on a couple of times. It's something I'm working on right now. Is building my tribe. Mm-hmm. You need those people around you who are going to cheer for you and build you up and support you.
Yes.
And it's huge. You can't do it without them. And the second thing is change. Change isn't always easy, but you have to be ready for it. Mm-hmm. And you have to know ahead of time what your plan is for dealing with change. I myself was told about this, sooner, probably in the spring 2 years ago, that I was going to be moving from one building to another. And while excited and sad to leave one school, but excited to start at the new school, it's hard. And so it's not something they teach you in school. You're not sitting in class about change, but it's something you're going to need to know how to deal with and how you're going to approach it and how you're going to handle it.
That's good.
So it's just something I want to share with aspiring leaders. Like you said, those two things, build your tribe and be prepared for change.
That's great advice, especially in education, because change happens quite often. Yeah, for real. So yeah, that's definitely good advice. So listen, Lisa, I really appreciate you agreeing to be a part of this project with me, and I know the audience appreciates it as well. listening to you and listening to your experiences. I know that someone got something out of it. And as you know, I don't take leadership lightly, man. And we've talked about it quite a few times because it can truly build or break anything, you know. And like I always say, there's at least one person who's listening to what we've been talking about, you know, that is going to help or humble them into improvement, you know, improving as a leader and as a person. Then, hey, our job is done, Lisa. And I definitely appreciate everything that you're doing, and keep on doing your thing.
You too.
All right, so I'm gonna let you go, and we'll be in contact. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Once again, that was Mrs. Lisa Riley with Leadership Points according to Lisa, and she added tremendous value to the L in the Crosby Principle of Leadership. I hope it reached one of you, and now you are developing ways to enhance your listening skills as a leader. Meanwhile, go on ahead to the social media side of things and follow, like, subscribe to Dr. Daryl Crosby on Facebook, and Daryl Cross is DARYLCROS on Twitter and IG. Email me at infiniteimpact8, as I mentioned earlier, at gmail.com. These are all ways to ask questions, comments, disagree, piggyback on any of the content that was presented in today's episode. As I said before, I want us all to grow as leaders and to leave an ironclad leadership legacy for those who we impact. The only way that this platform can grow is with your help. So until then, again, I'm Dr. Daryl Crosby, and remember, leadership is a platform and not a pedestal. Go out and be great.